First of all, I want to thank every single one of you who watches and supports this channel. Your comments, your likes, and the fact that you spend your time here means the world to me. If you're new here and enjoy true relationship stories filled with twists, heartbreak, and second chances, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay with us. Now, let's dive into today's story. I never thought I would be the guy writing something like this. For most of my life, I believed I had the perfect marriage, the kind of relationship people envied. We were high school sweethearts, married young in our mid-20s, and had built what I thought was a rock-solid life together. Her name is Claire Deschier. She was my first real love, the person I thought I'd grow old with. We had a modest but cozy house in a quiet suburb just outside of Indianapolis. I worked in it for a regional bank, decent salary, stable hours. Claire was a nurse, compassionate, hardworking, always putting others before herself. To the outside world, we looked like the ideal couple. Sunday barbecues with neighbors, Christmas photos in matching sweaters, vacations in Florida once a year. But behind closed doors, small cracks had started to form, cracks I chose to ignore. It began with subtle things. Claire spending more time at the gym, new clothes, new perfume. I chalked it up to her wanting to feel good about herself, and honestly, I encouraged it. She looked amazing. But then came the late shifts that didn't add up. Nights when she claimed the hospital was short-staffed. Yet when I called the nurses' station to check in, they told me she wasn't on the schedule. I remember one night in particular, a cold February evening. I had made dinner, her favorite, chicken Alfredo. She didn't show up until nearly midnight. No text, no call. When she finally walked through the door, she looked flushed, almost guilty, though she tried to play it off as exhaustion. I asked, "Claire, where were you?" I was worried. She sighed, tossed her bag onto the couch and said, "Don't start with me, Adam. I told you we're swamped at the hospital." Her tone cut me deeper than I expected. She had never spoken to me that way before. It felt cold, dismissive. The thing is, I wanted to believe her. For weeks, I convinced myself I was just being paranoid, that my insecurities were inventing problems. But then, fate handed me the truth in the cruelest way. One Saturday afternoon, Claire said she was meeting a friend for lunch. I didn't think much of it, until I ran into that very friend later at the grocery store. She casually mentioned she hadn't seen Claire in months. My stomach dropped. That night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone, and there it was. Dozens of messages to a man named Derek. Explicit texts, plans to meet, confessions of love. She had been cheating on me for at least 6 months. I remember my hands shaking, my chest tightening like I couldn't breathe. My entire marriage, my entire reality, felt like it had been ripped out from under me. I confronted her, phone in hand, tears in my eyes. "Claire, who is Derek?" She froze. And for the first time in all our years together, I saw pure panic on her face. Then, just like that, her mask cracked. She didn't even deny it. She just whispered, "I didn't want you to find out this way." That was the moment I realized the woman I had built my life around had already left me emotionally months ago. And I was just the last to know. The night I discovered the truth, my world came crashing down. I remember sitting on the couch with Claire standing in front of me, her eyes darting everywhere except into mine. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my mouth dry as sandpaper. "How long?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. She sat down across from me, her hands trembling as she pulled at the edge of her sweater. "About 6 months," she said. "It just happened. I didn't plan for it. Didn't plan for it." As if an affair could somehow be an accident, like spilling coffee on your shirt. I laughed bitterly. 6 months, Claire. 6 months of lies. 6 months of me waiting at home, making dinner, believing you when you said you were saving lives at the hospital. Was I just stupid to you? She shook her head quickly. No, Adam. You're not stupid. I still love you. I don't know what's wrong with me. Derek makes me feel alive in a way I haven't in years. But that doesn't mean I don't care about you. See. The words sliced me open. She loved me, but she loved him too. She cared about me, but not enough to stay faithful. The confrontation spiraled. Hours of shouting, tears, accusations, confessions. She swore it wasn't about me, that it was about her feeling trapped in routine, craving something new. She begged me not to throw away our marriage. But the truth was already too heavy. I couldn't unknow what I had seen, couldn't unhear her calling another man, the love of her life, in a text. That night I packed a bag and drove to my sister Emily's house. She opened the door in her pajamas, confusion written all over her face. What happened? She asked softly, pulling me into a hug as soon as she saw my tear-streaked face. Claire cheated, I choked out. And just like that, saying it out loud, the reality set in. The next few days were a blur of sleepless nights, endless overthinking, and constant nausea. Claire texted me relentlessly, long paragraphs filled with apologies, promises to end it with Derek, pleas for me to come home. But every time I thought about forgiving her, the images of those texts burned in my brain. Friends weighed in with their opinions. Some said marriages could survive affairs, that if I loved her, I should give counseling a try. Others told me to run and never look back. But deep down, I knew my trust in her was shattered beyond repair. One evening, after ignoring her calls all day, she showed up at Emily's house. She stood on the porch in the pouring rain, hair plastered to her face, sobbing. Adam, please, she cried. We can fix this. I'll do anything. Just don't give up on us. For a split second, I almost caved. 10 years together isn't something you throw away easily. But then I thought about all the nights she lied to me, all the times she chose Derek over honesty. I shook my head. Claire, you already gave up on us. I'm just finally catching up. And with those words, I closed the door. Filing for divorce was both the hardest and easiest decision I've ever made. Hard, because it felt like admitting failure. Easy, because staying with Claire would have meant betraying myself. The legal process was messy, as divorces usually are. We didn't have kids, but we did have a house, savings, and a life intertwined in 1,000 little ways. She wanted to fight for the house, arguing she had put more love into it. I reminded her that I had paid most of the mortgage. In the end, I chose not to drag it out. I let her have it. I just wanted out. During those months, I learned just how much betrayal can hollow a person out. Nights alone, in a small rental apartment, felt endless. I drank too much, scrolled through old photos, tortured myself with memories of better times. But slowly, I began to see glimpses of freedom. No more wondering where she was. No more pretending not to notice the lies. No more waiting for someone who had already emotionally checked out. My sister Emily was my rock. She forced me to get out of the house, dinners with her family, hikes, even a weekend trip to Chicago just to clear my head. Each time I resisted, but each time I came back feeling a little lighter. Meanwhile, Claire tried to keep me tethered. Late-night emails, calls from unknown numbers, letters left in my mailbox. She claimed Derek wasn't who she thought he was, that he was controlling, manipulative, not the dream man she imagined. She begged for another chance. I didn't respond. One night, though, curiosity got the better of me. I looked him up on social media. Derek, mid-30s, divorced, a personal trainer with motivational quotes plastered across his profile. And yet, beneath the surface, there were red flags everywhere. angry comments from ex-clients, vague accusations of dishonesty. Claire had traded me for a fantasy, and now she was paying the price. But as much as part of me wanted to feel vindicated, it didn't erase the pain. Knowing she regretted it didn't heal me. If anything, it made me sadder, because it proved she hadn't just destroyed me, she had destroyed herself too. Therapy helped. At first I hated it. Sitting in a quiet office, spilling my guts to a stranger felt unnatural. But my therapist, Dr. Hayes, gave me tools to process the grief. She told me something that stuck with me. Betrayal breaks trust with others. But the real work is learning to trust yourself again, your instincts, your worth, your strength. It wasn't an overnight transformation. But piece by piece, I started to rebuild. By the time our divorce was nearly finalized, I was a different man. Not healed, not yet, but different. Hardened. Wiser. A little more cautious with my heart. Claire still tried to pull me back. I'll never forget one night in March, just weeks before our court date. She showed up at my apartment unannounced, makeup smudged, eyes red. Adam, please, she whispered, clutching her jacket around her like armor. Derek's gone. He used me, lied to me. I ended it. Please, just give me one more chance. I looked at her, really looked at her. This was the woman I had once adored, the woman I thought I'd raise children with, grow old with. But now, all I saw was someone who had burned our home to the ground and was standing in the ashes, asking me to pretend the fire never happened. I can't, I said quietly. You killed us, Claire. I can't bring us back. She broke down, sobbing on my doorstep. But I didn't let her in. The next morning, I filed the final paperwork. And just like that, it was over. But endings are also beginnings. Divorce papers were signed on a rainy Thursday in April. I walked out of the courthouse with a thin folder under my arm, and the strangest mix of emotions swirling inside me: grief, anger, relief, and a hollow kind of freedom. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, listening to the rain beat against the windows. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel everything I'd been suppressing. The rage at her betrayal. The humiliation of being lied to. The sorrow of losing not just a wife but the future I thought would share. I drank too much whiskey, stared at old photos until my eyes blurred, and finally fell asleep on the couch. The weeks that followed were a blur of routine. Work, gym, sleep, repeat. My colleagues noticed I was quieter, but no one pried. I avoided social events, ignored calls from mutual friends who didn't know whose side to take, and built walls around myself. But life has a strange way of pushing you forward, even when you resist. One Saturday morning, about 2 months after the divorce was finalized, my sister Emily convinced me to join her for a community 5K run downtown. I hated running, but she insisted it would be good for me. Fresh air, endorphins, a chance to remember you're still alive, she'd said. Halfway through the race, sweaty and gasping, I was ready to quit when I tripped over an uneven patch of pavement and nearly face-planted. Someone caught my arm before I hit the ground. You okay there? I looked up and saw her, a woman about my age, maybe late 20s or early 30s, with dark brown hair tied back in a ponytail and sharp green eyes. She was laughing, but not in a cruel way, more like she found my clumsiness endearing. Yeah, I muttered, catching my breath. Guess I'm not exactly marathon material. She smiled. Don't worry, neither am I. I'm just here for the free bagels at the finish line. Her name was Rachel. We ended up running the rest of the race together, talking between breaths. She was a high school teacher, recently moved back to Indianapolis after a bad breakup of her own. By the time we crossed the finish line, I was smiling for the first time in months. It wasn't love at first sight. I don't even know if I believe in that anymore. But it was something. A spark. A reminder that not every interaction with the opposite sex had to be tainted with lies and betrayal. Over the next few weeks, Rachel and I started meeting up for coffee. Then dinner. Then long walks by the canal downtown, where the city lights reflected on the water and the summer air felt warm and alive. She never pressed me about my past, but when I finally told her about Claire, she just listened. No judgment, no pity, just quiet understanding. "You're not broken," she said one night as we sat on a park bench. "You're just healing, and healing takes time." Those words stayed with me. Meanwhile, Claire wasn't entirely gone from my life. Every so often I'd get a text from her. Long paragraphs about how she missed me, how Derek wasn't who she thought he was, how she would do anything to turn back time. I never responded. I couldn't. Each message only reminded me of the person she had chosen to be, and the man she had turned me into. One evening, months after the divorce, I drove past our old house. It had new owners now, a fresh coat of paint on the shutters, a swing set in the backyard. For a moment, I felt that familiar sting of loss. But then I realized it wasn't my house anymore. It wasn't our future. It was just a building, filled with someone else's dreams. Mine were waiting to be rebuilt. The real turning point came during Thanksgiving at my parents' house. Surrounded by family, laughter, and the smell of roasted turkey, I realized I didn't feel the crushing weight of betrayal anymore. The wound was still there, but it had started to scar over. And scars, while ugly, are proof that healing is possible. Later that night, Rachel texted me, "Hope your Thanksgiving was good. Wanna grab coffee tomorrow?" I stared at the message, and for the first time since Claire's betrayal, I didn't feel guilt for moving on. I didn't feel like I was betraying my past. I felt ready, or at least willing, to take a step towards something new. I typed back, "Yeah, I'd like that." Looking back now, I don't see my story as one of failure anymore. Yes, my marriage ended in betrayal. Yes, I lost years to someone who didn't value me the way I deserved. But I also found strength I didn't know I had. I learned that love isn't about clinging to the past, but about choosing yourself first, and trusting that someone out there will choose you too, fully, without lies, without conditions. Claire was my past. Rachel, or maybe someone else down the line, could be my future. But me, I was finally my own present. And that was enough.